Ingvar's perspective. I'm standing on top of a cliff under a midnight sun, bouncing excitedly from leg to leg as I watch the capsule approach from the south, framed by my planet's rings behind it. It's about 8 degrees Celsius out here right now, about as warm as it ever gets this far north. Sun, warmth, customers to greet. Could a boy ask for more? The craft sets down on the rocky ground, depositing his baggage onto the top of the luggage lift. The suitcases are swallowed down into the sweep beneath my feet as the private transport's door swings up and open. The pair who emerge, though a little disheveled after the late night they presumably just arrived from, are two of the best dressed and best looking people I've ever seen. Despite having lived on a planet with a small refugee population of them my entire life, this is my first time ever seeing a Don in the flesh. She's dressed in an absolutely gorgeous blue and silver dress, green at her forearms. 2 heads taller than me with blue skin, white hair done up in Norse wedding braids, glowing white eyes blinking blearily, and 4 thin, 4-fingered arms, 2 of which she has draped about her man as she leans on him, her 4 fangs bared in a loving smile. Her claws are painted silver, and she has a beautiful ring on her upper left hand, a good match both to the dress and the stunning silver and sapphire crown she has on at her forehead. As visually striking as the alien woman is, my attention doesn't rest on her for more than a second before it's captured by her new husband. His build, his height, and his hair color are such that, with only the addition of a hammer, a beard, red contact lenses, and Norse clothing, he'd make the most convincing whore ever. He's more than a head taller than me, and looks like he might be twice as heavy. Long curly copper hair spills over the arm, draped across his broad shoulders. His handsome, boyish face is enhanced by dark circles under his eyes, and a loving smile directed at his wife. On him, beardlessness has somehow ended up looking more handsome than if he had a beard. The style of the wedding suit he wears immediately marks him as non-Norse, even if his surname and unshaven face wouldn't have. Some men on this planet do keep themselves clean-shaven, and it's not as if there's any law that states only those with Norse patronymic surnames are allowed to settle here. Green just became my new favorite color for men's wedding clothes. This man wears it so well. On his top half he has a tailed, medium green jacket which comes down to the backs of his knees. It's trimmed in a darker green with red metal buttons and lapel ornaments of the same. The arm I can see, for not being entwined between his wife's and wrapped around the small of her back, is girthy looking. His trousers are tight enough that the complete absence of any jiggle in his legs as he walks reveals there not to be so much as a gram of wasted fat on his body, as well as the other appealing thing they suggest. I have to take a moment to squash the little seed of jealousy that sprouts inside me, imagining myself in that Dawn woman's position. It's the cost of working at a resort primarily frequented by honeymooners. I see a lot of cute guys looking the most gorgeous they'll ever look, and they're all off limits. Well, all of them except the scumbags willing to flirt with their hotel concierge mere hours after getting married, and sometimes in front of their spouses. But all the good looks in Mjolnir aren't enough to rescue them from undesirability. Gods, I need to find myself a boyfriend, and quickly. As the lovely couple's feet touch down on the rocky cliff top, I throw my arms wide and greet. Welcome to Fantasy Cliffs Resort Suites, and thank you so much for choosing us, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. With enthusiasm I don't need to fake. They both manage to tear their gaze away from each other to look at me. The emerald green eyes belonging to the handsome man flick between mine as he notices their colors, but he doesn't react to it other than that. My name is Ingvar. I'll be your concierge, but don't worry. As soon as I've given you guys the tour and safety instruction, I'll be out of your way. The subtlest frown of confusion passes over the man's face as he says, Nice to meet you, Ingvar, in a hoarse voice, speaking English accented New Norse before turning to mutter, Safety instruction? Into his smirking wife's long, pointy blue ear. That's an unfortunate but definite hit to his attractiveness. He's not too bright, is he? He hasn't understood that we can't just let guests turn up and use it without telling them how to use it first. It wouldn't be safe. Do you have any objection to my beginning the tour? I smile, bouncing on the balls of my feet. No, go right ahead, shrugs the offer to speak in my language. Excellent. Fantasy Cliffs Resort Suite spreads across 100 kilometers squared of Arctic wilderness. If you were visiting in winter, it would likely be around minus 100 degrees Celsius, and climate control fields will be absolutely essential. But since it's currently summer, that's not necessary. Behind you, I gesture behind them as the craft takes off. You'll see the edge of a 400-meter tall cliff. Rest assured, the base of this cliff is lined with momentum arresting fields that will be active as long as anyone is atop this plateau, so you won't die if you fall off. We do, however, advise against falling off it if it can be helped, since you will subsequently be stuck down there until one of our pods can come to retrieve you. Should you require assistance, our central office is 6 kilometers that way. I point northwest, and can likewise be reached most conveniently by pod. More conveniently, you might call us via our own closed network without the need to turn on your holopad signal and be bombarded by calls and messages from outside, as we understand that privacy is often of great importance to our guests. On that front, I have good news, though it's definitely bad news if you are hoping to socialize while here. While FCRS has more than 100 suites and is growing in popularity, you'll share this plateau with only one other suite which, as of the moment, is unbooked for the duration of your stay. This means, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, that you will have as much privacy here as you choose. If you'll follow me, I'll show you the suite itself, give you the safety instruction, and then I'll leave you to it. All right, says the mouth-wateringly good-looking himbo, his dark baguette eyes narrowed. I turn and walk down the slope to the top of the carved stone ramp. I walk to the bottom and stop, turning around to explain to the pair. In winter, it would be necessary to have 2 doors engaged in an airlock system here to stop the entire suite massively dropping in temperature every time either of you entered or exited. As it's summer currently, we have not engaged the airlock, but you may do so from the suite's control panel if you wish. It only depends on what matters more to you, getting in and out quickly or keeping the interior temperature at your level of comfort. Makes sense, nods the redhead. The door opens and I turn around to step through. Wow, definite Bond villain vibes here, quips the man, upon seeing the suite's open-plan living room and kitchen that stretch away to our left. Very much so, Mr. Taylor, I chuckle. Luxurious furnishings sit atop imported, rich red stone flooring. The high vaulted ceilings are just the bare rock of the cliff the suite is excavated into. The far wall is lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that look out over the barren rocky valley hundreds of meters below. If you'll look this way, I say, gesturing to the wall on my right as I reach the base of the ramp, you'll see your luggage sitting on the lift that carried it down from up top. Next to it, you'll see a full-body stylizer for any hairstyling and makeup needs you might have while here. On the other side, you'll see a tailorizer for any garment and footwear needs, and besides that, I point to the cubic meter cavity in the wall. You'll see an extra-large nanoforge for any props, etc. you might want to print while here. If you wish for anything too large or in any other way difficult to print, you can call the reception desk and I or a colleague will check our storage for something matching your parameters, which can then be delivered to you by pod. If you'll follow me this way, I'll show you the suite up here first, before taking you down for the briefing on the main attraction. I walk left, past the mirror, hung on the far wall from a window, and stand with my back to the ramp down. I gesture out to the lounging area in front of me and say, I'm sure you both know how living rooms work, so I won't waste time explaining that. I would just like to put your minds at ease regarding the windows. Smiling at them as they catch me up. Those are octuple glazed panels of transparent polymer, so thick and mounted so securely into the cliff face that a fully grown female troll could charge into them from either side without cracking or dislodging them, and as previously stated, even if you did manage to get through to the other side, you would simply be caught by the momentum-arresting fields at the bottom. Additionally, since we know privacy is a likely concern, I would like to let you know that they are one-way mirrored, so even if someone was standing over there on the far side of the valley, or hovering outside the window in an applecraft, there will be no way for them to see inside. Seeing understanding on their faces, I move on. Here is the kitchen. It can be accessed via our closed network and has an extensive menu of preset meals it can prepare you, as well as having a high chance of being able to replicate any recipes you have saved to your hollows. If it's missing a vital ingredient for any off-menu dish, it will flag that fact to you, and you may again call the reception desk to have it delivered. You shan't starve while at a hotel if we have anything to say about it. They smile at that. Finally, for up here is the bedroom, I say, pointing past the kitchen counter to the door at the far end from the entrance. It slides open for me as I approach it. I gesture vaguely around the lavishly decorated room, with another floor-to-ceiling window on the far wall, and say, I don't imagine you'll be spending much of your time in here, what with the main attraction down there, but hang on, interrupts the large man, throwing up the palm of his hand to stop me. What does that mean? What kind of main attraction is this that's going to keep us from using the bedroom? Looking confused. He's not the only one. He's almost acting like he doesn't. He doesn't know, smiles the Don woman in unaccented Norse. I chose the venue. My family booked it and paid for it as their wedding present to us. I managed to keep it a secret because I wanted to see his reaction to the reveal. Oh, right, I grin excitedly. Well, that's extremely fun. I won't spoil it then. I don't often get to enjoy the reactions of people who don't already know. Let's go down and see it without further delay. I squeeze between the pair to scamper back through the suite to get to the top of the long, bare stone hallway, sloping into the plateau. Leading them down into the bowels of the mountain, I stop before the door and detach the screen from its holster on the rocky wall. The door opens, revealing a room that reaches 15 meters above us, spans 30 meters across, and stretches 60 meters away. The walls are currently bare and white. I step out onto a loose floor with a consistency between that of sand and gravel. I look behind me to see the copper-haired man frowning around the featureless room. A shuttle hangar? We're not a bit deep for that? There's got to be 20 meters of rock overhead. Does it retract, or... Oh, this is no shuttle hangar, Mr. Taylor, I grin. Let me show you why we call ourselves the Fantasy Cliffs. I press the button on the screen in my hands to begin demo mode. Immediately, the entire chamber shifts. One part, near us on our left, becomes a forest, the loose floor climbing up to form itself into convincing-looking trees. Beyond that, another morphs into a miniature village consisting of a few houses. At the far end, an irregular bowl opens up and fills with water. The right side has a similar variety of landscapes and shapes arrayed along it for the walk back. Each section has a different skybox projected onto the wall beside it, and the ceiling overhead. At our immediate left, at the start of the demonstration, stand a few stomach-height display counters. "Oh my god!" exclaims the man in English, before switching back to Norse to ask, "It's a Morphic? Like a giant nanoforge?" Almost as satisfied as his wife seems by the reaction, I smile. Indeed, we are standing in your suite's own private Morphic chamber, able to simulate most any environment you might care to occupy with a high degree of realism. Similar to a nanoforge in principle. However, the bots that comprise the floor are microbots rather than nanobots. This is a good thing for us, since having as many chambers as we have and the size that we have them, it would have required us to lay our hands on a whole number percentage of all the computing power on the planet, if they needed to control this volume of nanobots. If you'll step over here, I'll begin the demonstration. I eagerly skip over to the counters and take up position on the far side of them. If you'll look at this first panel here, I say, gesturing across it, you'll see that the microbots are able to chromatically adapt to mimic any color in the range of human visual perception. I'm afraid that just looks like a line of different shades of grey smudging into each other if you're a monochromat, giggles the Dawn woman, pointing to her glowing white eyes. Ah, I say, needing to catch myself before I give an apology which could be misunderstood as, I'm sorry your species doesn't have color vision. Well, if you touch this next panel, I say, running my fingertips across it, I'm sure you'll both be able to feel a selection of the textures they can reproduce. The man and woman both extend their wedding-ringed hands to run them across the smooth, rough, slippery, bumpy, crackly, and soft surfaces. I move on to the next panel and gesture to a water-filled indentation in its surface. Some limitations microbots have are that they aren't particularly good at mimicking water, mimicking flame, or producing free-floating structures. However, as you can see here, they are able to transport and contain water stored in a tank outside the chamber. So any fantasy environments that simply must have a water feature can be reproduced. The water is both safe to swim in and to drink, and is sterilized between uses. For fire, though, I gesture to the glowing pile of microbots, mimicking the shape of a campfire and radiating heat. I'm afraid this is about as good as they can do. Light and heat are no problem, but microbots don't get on well with real flames, so we kindly request that you don't bring in any fuel from outside to light genuine fires in here. Free-floating structures aren't technically possible. The microbots must have contact with other microbots in order to form a matrix with them, so having a floating house, hanging completely unsupported in the middle of the chamber, isn't possible. However, it is possible to have a structure supported from the ceiling that is camouflaged to look as if it were floating. The handsome man who's been listening intently up to now, and dispelling my earlier assessment of him as a dopey himbo, raises his hand to say, I have questions. I smile and excitedly nod, extending my hands to him, to invite him to ask, "What happens if we're in a microbot structure when it collapses? Is it possible to be buried, suffocated, crushed?" "Good question. Let me show you," I beam, tapping the pad to create a 2-meter-tall box with a door between the panels and the forest. As it finishes building itself, I step inside, to turn to smile back at the pair, who both have to stoop to follow me in. Tapping the screen in my hand again, I cause the structure I'm inside to dramatically collapse. Not a hair on my head is touched. The man nods appreciation as I explain. Two safeties keep being buried, crushed or suffocated by microbots from being possible. First, the computerized control for this chamber is, at all times, aware of the positions of all people inside it, and will not allow harm to come to us if it is possible to prevent. Second, even if that computer guidance somehow suffered a catastrophic failure, the microbots would simply, gently return to the state they were in when we entered. Microbots have enough intelligence to know what is and what is not microbot. Therefore, they will refuse to incorporate any of the latter, including and especially organic beings, into their matrix. Foreign objects will be gently brought up to the surface and deposited there. Hang on, though. I saw that lake over there being filled up from beneath. How are the microbots transporting water under their surface without that water being surrounded by microbot matrix? Frowns the man, more curious than accusing. Ah, well spotted. You're right that the water is being piped around under their surface, but while their matrix surrounds it, it isn't actually incorporated into it. Pipe diameter is limited to 10 centimeters, with faster filling being achieved by more pipes, not wider ones, meaning it's not possible for something the scale of a human or a don to get sucked under and drowned. The man gives a satisfied nod and an approving pout of his bottom lip. I smile. I can see you're a man quite concerned with safety, Mr. Taylor, so let me assure you. I tip myself backwards. Instead of curling forward to protect my head and extending my arms backward to break my fall, I do the opposite, extending my head back as if to take the full force of the fall onto the hard ground against the back of my skull. I have just enough time to see his eyes go wide as he lurches forward, vainly trying to catch me before my head hits the ground, it rippling in the manner of a bouncy castle. Lying on the floor, I smile up at the frozen man and finish. You are substantially safer inside this chamber than you are most places outside of it. I perform an abdominal crunch to raise my knees over my head and roll my entire body into a kneel before getting up. This technology likely could have been brought to market years before it was, if it weren't for the need to troubleshoot the safety of every potential scenario that could occur inside it, no matter how much of a 1 in a million edge case. I smile, before turning around and leading the way down the path through the convincing forest. Now, the environments I'm about to showcase to you should in no way be taken as an exhaustive representation of the chamber's capabilities. We have a library of thousands of ready-made settings for you to browse, each of which can be adjusted until they suit the needs of whatever fantasy you wish to play out in them perfectly. If you really can't find what you're working for, you can create it yourself from scratch using this control pad, but that's much more work. The chamber is equipped with a meteor engine that can reproduce wind, rain, snow, and temperatures from minus 60 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, though it won't allow you to die of either hypo or hypothermia. It's Victor's perspective. I stand in the doorway, looking down on the skinny Norse boy, whose blue-gold heterochromia and boundlessly energetic enthusiasm remind me strongly of Sam. Not that I'm gonna volunteer that. Thanks for everything, Ingvar. I smile down at him exhaustedly, extending a hand for a handshake. He brings his hand to mine and beams. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. It's rare that I have such a good audience for the instruction. I'm glad. Goodbye now, I smile, my voice croaky from tiredness. Goodbye, Mr. Taylor, he answers, releasing my hand and leaning to look around me. Goodbye, Mrs. Taylor. No answer comes. Smiling up at me one last time, the boy turns to walk through the door and up the ramp in the direction of the hotel pod he's presumably leaving by. As soon as he's gone, I lock the door and turn around. Toon has the Morphic chamber control panel on the kitchen counter and is tapping away at it with all 16 fingers, her glowing eyes twitching back and forth across its surface as she mutters to herself. Babe, I croak, smiling tiredly over at her. She doesn't acknowledge me, continuing to mutter. And if I put it over here, then that makes space for... Babe, I chuckle, approaching her. But the Saharan sand has a nicer quality than the Mojave. Babe, I shout, laughing at how ridiculous it is that she's so engrossed in it that she can't hear me shouting from 3 meters away. and Victor can design the outfit for that part, but yeah! She shrieks, as I wrap my left arm around her waist and lift her up, bodily onto my shoulder. She giggles wonderfully, as I carry her across the width of the living room and deposit her down between me and the window, bringing my arms around the small of her back and pressing her into the polymer with my weight. The most beautiful woman to have ever existed, slow blinks down at me through exhausted eyes, her fangs bared in a drowsy smile, as she wraps her arms around my shoulders. Our lips meet in a tender and prolonged kiss as I pin her in place. The knowledge that, as of about 10 hours ago, this woman is my wife fills my heart with fire and my blood with lightning, in spite of my tiredness. I finally manage to pull my lips from hers to hoarsely ask, "How long have you been awake, baby?" "About," she considers, 22 hours, maybe, but I couldn't sleep well last night." I nod. Same for me. And they've been the happiest 22 hours of my life. But as much as I wish this day could last forever, as much as I'm eager to try out every fantasy scenario we can dream up for that physical holodeck downstairs, I think it's both of our bedtimes right now, don't you? How about we just use the bedroom for this time? Start designing our wildest fantasies tomorrow? I do the best seductive smirk I can manage right now, which might be boosted in appeal by my tiredness, or might make me look like I've had half a bottle of sleeping drugs. No way to know. You surely aren't suggesting we just go straight to sleep on our wedding night, are you, Victor?" She flusters adorably. I give a slow head shake and answer, "Didn't say that. Just suggested whatever we do next, we do it in there." She chuckles, doing magnificent things to the feeling of her body against mine. "You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Taylor." "Yes, but do you accept it, Mrs. Taylor?" There's a shudder of delight before she answers, "Yes." Ah! Giving another delightful shriek as I scoop her up into what I'd usually call a princess carry, but right now is definitely a bridal carry. With my wife in my arms, radiating beauty, I walk to the bedroom door and cross the threshold.